Brian didn't believe me at first. I mean, I wouldn't either, if I'm being honest. But he listened until I finally got to a part where I was able to show him a bit of proof. When explaining when I was turned into a voodoo puppet, I slowly lowered my collar to show him the stitches that keep my head on my shoulders. And to show him further proof, I grabbed a napkin and rubbed most of my makeup off, showing Brian for the first time my real face. "Shit, man," Brian said, barely able to really process the information in front of him. I'll tell he wanted to touch my stitches to make sure they were real. So I did him one better, tilting my head to the left as much as I could. My stitches strained and for a moment my head separated slightly from my neck. To say that convinced him would be an understatement. "So that's why I'm worried about where you're working," I explained to him. Finishing up the job of removing my foundation and making it so that I was showing him all of my pale fat. "It doesn't make sense for me that he's back," I mumbled to him. Brian was still reeling from what I had shown him, but he quickly calmed himself down and nodded a bit. "Even if he's back, why would he be after me? I mean, yeah, we're roommates, but we barely interact with each other." This was true since I stayed locked in my room for most of the day. "That's what's so confusing to me," I told him, trying to piece together the cockroaches' plan. It had to involve this new voodoo shop in some way. There was no way it just happened to open up, and then suddenly I was having nightmares about Creole inside the dorm. "Preston doesn't seem at all like King Creole," Brain said, breaking the train of thought I was trying to build. "Really, he seems like a pretty chill dude. He just coughs a lot, but if he's sick I can't really blame him." Brian shrugged, getting off the couch where we had been sitting and heading over to the fridge. "What do you guys even sell? Just like trinkets or something?" I asked. Watching him come back to the couch with some sodas for the two of us, I took mine and carefully sipped from it. I still haven't got the whole drinking thing down, so sometimes it leaks out of my stitches. "Yeah, pretty much," he said, taking a swig from his soda and thinking to himself. "Yeah, we really don't sell anything too weird. Dolls, candy, etc. No wishes to speak of." Taking another swig from his soda, I could tell he was still staring at me in between his swigs. "Can you just watch your boss? See if he does anything strange at all?" I asked him softly, taking slow and careful sips of my soda, and so far succeeding in not having a leak. Brian turned to me with a smile and nodded. "Sure, man. And thanks for trusting me with this secret of yours." He offered me his first, which I returned with a smile and a bump of my own. "And if I'm being honest, you look pretty cool," he said with a chuckle, finishing off his soda and placing the bottle on the table in front of us. "You should have seen me when I had button eyes," I offered with a weak chuckle, closing the cap on my soda and standing up to go put it back in the fridge. While walking past my room, I leaned down and picked up the steak knife, looking up to the ceiling to see if there was any sign of Creole's claw marks. But there wasn't. With a defeated sigh, I placed the knife back in the sink and put my soda in the fridge. "Hey, Travis. I'm going out with a couple of friends tonight. Any chance of you joining us?" Brain asked with some hope in his voice. I looked over at him and smiled a little. My fingers reached up to scratch my stitches. A sort of nervous tic I've developed. "Maybe next time. I really just want to try and sleep," I told him, feeling bad when I saw he was a little sad about that. but he nodded knowingly, and let me go back to my room with another fist bump. Walking back into my room, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Brian was pretty cool with me being the way I am. And I could now safely walk around the dorm without worrying about him catching me without my makeup. Closing the door to my room, I pulled out my phone and set it to charge on my little nightstand. I was about to lay back in bed when it started ringing. Staring at it, I saw that it was Alexandra. Nodding at that, I reached over and picked up my phone. Hello. Travis, I'm scared. A soft little voice came from the other end. My eyes shot wide open when I realized it was Olivia on the other end. Why? What's wrong? I asked with more than just a little urgency in my voice. But it was quickly dispelled with her next sentence. I'm afraid there's a monster under my bed, she softly mumbled to me. I couldn't help but let out a little chuckle at that. Despite everything she'd been through and seen, Olivia still is only 8 years old. Aha, she told me quickly. Whatever she did, it never failed to bring a genuine smile to my face. She was so innocent, and yet I knew she had a powerful drive beneath her small little body. Then Tempe will protect you from anything that might be hiding under there, I told her, lying back in bed with the phone against my ear, and continuing on with my assurances that she was going to be okay. It took a bit more convincing, but I finally got her to believe that Tempe would protect her. Okay, she finally said to me, yawning a little bit since it was past her bedtime. Thank you, big bro. A name that always tugged at my heart. I smiled at her even though she was several miles away. Sleep well, Livy, I told her, ending the call and placing my phone back on the stand to charge. Laying my head on my pillow, I stared up at the ceiling. Sleep was still a strange subject for me. For so long as a puppet I hadn't been able to, and suddenly I was now able to sleep once again. Sure, it was only for a handful of hours, but it felt amazing coming from nothing. Finding myself still staring up at the ceiling, I finally rolled over on my side to try and get a few winks of sleep. Whether I was even going to be able to was another thing. With so many thoughts running through my mind about Creole and the Voodoo shop. It was a wonder if I slept for even half an hour. Rolling around in bed, I couldn't help but feel that something was off. I couldn't tell if it was something about my bed, or I just wasn't tired. Rolling around some more, I finally settled on just staring at my bedroom door, until I either fell asleep or morning came. Whatever was going to come first. Finally, slowly closing my eyes, I was jolted awake by scratching coming from somewhere. Sitting up in bed quickly, I looked around in pure panic for the source. I must have fallen asleep, and that meant that he most likely was here. Where are you, you asshole? I shouted, my voice trembling with obvious fear and not bravado at all. I reached into my pocket trying to find any kind of weapon to fight against him. Well, I don't think lint is his weakness, so I was definitely out of luck in that department. My gaze turned to the ceiling, fully expecting to see him, but when I didn't, I began to panic even more. Never played hide and seek, Travis, my boy? His voice asked me. It felt like it was coming from my head and gave me no idea at all as to where he might be. I gripped my blankets tightly as my eyes darted in every direction to where he might be. Alright, you asshole. Where are you? I mumbled, swallowing the bile building up in my throat and getting out of bed quickly. My eyes were dead set on the closet. It was the only spot that the freak could possibly be hiding in. Walking over to it, I flung the doors open, only to be met with all my sweaters and hoodies staring back at me. I was beyond confused. Reaching into the closet, I threw everything out in some vain attempt to try and find him. And that was when it hit me. What Olivia had called me about. The bed. Had turned towards the bed, and to my horror, his long gangly arms shot out from the side of the bed. His claws digging into the floor and scraping along the floor as he pulled himself out from underneath my bed, stumbling into my closet. I stared in fear as this giant lumbering creature pulled itself out from underneath my bed. Should have paid attention to little Miss Olivia. He chuckled as he pulled himself straight and cracked his bones into place. In one step he was already close enough to reach me. But instead, he bent down and pushed his face close to mine. After all, you don't have any way of defending yourself like she does. He smiled, his rows of jagged yellow teeth menacingly staring back at me. You can't hurt me anymore. I shouted back at him, going to swing at him, only for him to easily catch my hand and slam me into the closet, picking me up and tossing me into the wall with a force that took every ounce of air I had in my lungs from me. Oh, can't I? He said with a cackle, walking over to me and lifting his pointer finger up at me. And with a swift motion, he stabbed me with it in the shoulder, causing me to scream aloud as he drove it deeper and deeper. This is only the beginning, Travis. I'm going to enjoy these next few days. He drove his finger in deeper, causing me to scream louder. Just leave me alone. Please just leave me alone. I screamed at him as he twisted his finger around inside my shoulder, reaching out to grab his arm and try to pull it out from my shoulder. All he did was return a smile to me and drive it even deeper until it came out behind me and pinned me to the wall. Oh no, you don't get to just ruin everything I've created, and just beg me to leave you alone. I'm not going to stop until I take everything from you. He snarled, pushing his face mere inches from mine. It's time to wake up, my little puppet. With that, I gasped and awoke in bed, drenched in sweat and gripping my shoulder tightly, staring at it and half expecting it to be drenched in blood. But there was nothing there at all. I breathed hard and carefully looked underneath my bed. Finding nothing there, I sighed defeated and got out of bed. Brian had classes that morning, but it left me a note explaining that he would watch Preston nice and closely for any signs that he might be King Creole. I didn't have classes until the afternoon, but feeling so uneasy about being in the dorm alone, I figured I might as well get out and try to be social for once. I slept into one and left the dorm, making sure it was locked before heading down towards the campus grounds to get something to eat. Settling on some pizza, I sat down and softly blew on it as I waited for it to cool down. It felt nice to be somewhat normal with people. Smiling as I finally bit into my slice, I looked around at everyone running around and getting places. It made me wonder if any of them had ever been in the same situation I was in. Probably not, but it made me feel better to think as much. Yeah. Go ahead, I said, scooching a bit as she sat on the other side of the booth. Thank you for the spray, I mumbled shyly, looking down at the pizza in front of me, and slowly nibbling on it to avoid any kind of eye contact with her. Don't mention it. She giggled, watching me eat for a moment before also going ahead and eating her slice. You don't remember me, do you? She finally asked after a moment. I looked up at her with a raised brow. I know, sorry. I'm really bad with names and faces, I told her. I was trying my best to remember her face, but nothing was clicking. What with the horrifying voodoo man that was threatening to ruin my existence really taking priority? High school silly. We worked on that science project together. She chuckled, pulling her phone out and showing me a picture of us at the science fair. And it was then that I really felt stupid. The only girl who had ever really given a crap about me in school. Fuck. I'm stupid. I sighed, planting my face in my hands, silently freaking out and quickly pulling them away when I remembered the makeup on my face. It's okay. She giggled again, putting her phone away. I almost didn't recognize you either, Travis. You don't exactly act the same, she said, eating her pizza and really eyeing me. I pouted a bit, but she was definitely right. It's such a long story. I sighed, shaking my head and biting into the remaining crust of my pizza. Maybe I'll tell you. But right now, just know that I appreciate this spray. I told her, smiling up at her. She returned the sentiment and nodded at me. We could have gone on longer, but my phone ringing pulled my attention away from her. Looking at it, I saw that it was Brian. We had exchanged numbers when we first moved in just in case something happened, and we needed to contact each other. Brian, what's up? I asked him, looking at Riley and holding up a finger to her, which she nodded and just went about drinking her soda. Dude, did you remember to lock up? Brian asked me. I got back from class, and the door was flung open, and shit is thrown everywhere. He told me. I looked up at Riley and quickly started collecting my garbage. I have to go, I told her quickly. Yeah, I definitely locked it. I have the key in my pocket. I told him quickly, shoving the garbage into the trash and quickly running off towards the direction of my dorm room. Oh shit, you're right. Cause the doorknob has been broken the fuck off. Brian told me, causing me to panic even more. Looks like they just kinda stayed in the common room. Both our doors are closed, but I'm gonna double check. He told me. Sounds good, I'll meet you there, I told him, hanging up when it was confirmed, and thinking of every way in which that bastard could have snuck his way into our dorm. Well, not snuck, more like forced his way into it. One thing was obvious to me. He was going to continue his threats to me until I either stopped him, or he made good on those threats. My only idea was to stop sleeping. But that came with its own set of problems. The fear of other Travis appearing once again. It would definitely be stacked against me if both he and Nightmare Creole would team up. Well, whatever happens, I'm going down swinging. If you are liking this series so far, make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe, so I can reach 1,000 subscribers and keep creating new contents for you guys.